Hi, my name's Caroline. Welcome to my channel. Today I would like to talk to you about what might be blocking your motivation to achieve things. Sometimes known as self-sabotage, and in terms of counselling and therapy, we might call it a try hard, in inverted commas, driver. So this is behaviour that we use as a coping strategy, but on a very subconscious level. So it's not necessarily something you'd be aware of or really understand why it's there, and you might have problems just achieving things in life. It can be from very simple things such as, wanting to put a wash load on, all the way up to much bigger things like completing a qualification or I guess passing your driving test, saving up enough money, getting the job that you want, planning a holiday that you'd like to take. There's lots of things that we want to achieve in life, and of course there's lots of other reasons why you might not be able to achieve those. But if you're finding that this is becoming a pattern for you, then it might be worth considering whether you have this try hard, and we call it a driver. So it manifests in terms of your behaviour, and it shows up in particular around very stressful times in your life. So I'm going to use an example of, so I'm going to anonymise this example. So a client that I had quite a while ago, and she really wanted to redecorate a room in her house, and she couldn't figure out what was stopping her from doing up her room. She had the money, she had the time, she really enjoys colours and fabrics and wallpaper and paints, and she really couldn't understand what was stopping her. And she'd noticed that this had become a pattern in her life, whereby she'd be able to do the first part of the project, but then couldn't ever quite sort of get over the hurdles to reach the end and to complete that project. We did some work together around looking on a deeper level around, what was blocking her. Because although this wasn't a huge problem in her life in the grand scheme of things, it was still something was going on there for her. It didn't seem to make sense to her. What she was a retired lady, so she had all the time she needed. She had the funds, and it was something that she really wanted to do. So why couldn't she do it? And after getting to work together, we uncovered some stuff for her, which was around she had lost her mother at a very young age, and as a result she had developed a coping strategy of the only way she would get any kind of support and help from her father and from his new wife was if she appeared helpless, or she I'm not trying to say she was a victim, but she had found that was a coping strategy that meant she got attention, and her dad would then come and help her, and she would achieve these things that she set her mind to. But actually what was going on for her on a deeper level was she was getting some of her dad's attention, and in her mind, in her young mind, his attention felt like she was receiving love, and that she would be okay, sort of as she moved through life. um, she felt as though she was going to be okay as long as she had her dad's attention. Fast forward to a time in which she is retiring, and we realised that perhaps she hadn't done the grieving that she would like to do around losing her mum at a very young age. And she realised that through her life, her coping strategy had actually been to get quite a long way through projects but never fully complete them, or she would find it very hard to complete them. And what would usually happen for her was that it was actually her husband would come in and would help her to complete these projects. But in this scenario, her husband wasn't interested in helping her with the decorating and the DIY. And so through the work we did together, we figured out that taking a relatively small example of her bedroom, wanting to decorate her bedroom, had actually led down into looking at some really quite deep issues there for her. And she was able then to start to do some grief work and to start to come to terms. So this was probably 50 years later in her life that she started to do the grieving for losing her mum at a young age. And so, that's a fairly clear example I've given there, and it may not be as clear for you as to why you're having problems in getting motivated to do or to complete projects. And I mean, we all most people, I'm a classic example of someone who starts 5 different projects and never finishes them. But actually, I'm over exaggerating. That's actually not true. Most projects that I start, I will eventually complete, or I'll give it a pretty good go. I actually find it difficult if I start a project and don't finish it. It will then really, really niggle me. And it'll be something that I will get around to doing because it will just annoy me too much. So especially when it comes to interiors and decorating, she says, looking around her bedroom thinking, I really don't like the colour of that wardrobe, I really want to paint it. Yeah, I've got lots on my to-do list to get through. But yeah, we can translate that sort of example, and maybe for you, if it's not a chronic problem, then it might be that there are other life sort of reasons. Life's getting in the way, and that's why you're not able to complete your projects or find the motivation there. But if you feel as though this is a pattern in your life, if this has been happening over a number of years, then it would be very much worth your while trying to understand what's going on a deeper level, because a lot of our motives are very much in our subconscious until we make them conscious. So as a project for you, I mean, if you've got a pen and paper handy, it might be worth just taking 5 minutes to think of a project that you would like to complete but haven't managed to complete it yet, and take a bit of time to just really dig down to those deeper levels. um, yes, there's always going to be probably the excuse of there's not enough money, there's not enough time, and maybe there are some very practical reasons why you haven't finished those projects. But let's set those aside for for a moment, because generally we can find ways around those things. For example, I live on my own, and before I lived on my own, I didn't have a clue about most DIY things, and I always sort of left that to someone else to sort out. Now I don't have that, I don't have that other person to do those things, and that's been a big learning curve for me. But I was determined to make the time, and to, yeah, focus on figuring things out for myself. I'm still learning, but I was very proud of myself a couple of months back when I managed to take I figured out how to use an electric drill. Um, Go me. And I managed to take the fridge door off so that I could repaint the front of the fridge door because I didn't like the colour. And I then also wanted to change the handles, which you can't do unless you take the door off because it's an integrated fridge. I also had to do that to the dishwasher. Um, Now I haven't done a brilliant job, and the fridge door's a little bit sticky, but so eventually I think I will have to get a carpenter to look at it and, tighten it all up properly. But even though I never done any real DIY in my life, I don't really like DIY. Um, and I could have used a lot of different excuses as to why I wasn't going to figure that out. But I managed to do it. I did manage to find the time, managed to find the money to buy an electric drill. Um, and I carved out time to do those jobs. And so although we can come up with lots of practical reasons why we can't complete these jobs, actually, usually if we start to dig down deeper, we can find that maybe there are some subconscious blocks going on for us. And I know I was very aware that I had this sort of in the back of my mind. I had this sort of slight wishing that someone could sort of swoop in and rescue me and just sort of get it all done for me. And my son can be quite practical, but he doesn't have a clue how to he doesn't have a clue one end of an electric drill from another. Um, and he's not around very much anyway either, so who was left to figure it out? Well, it was me. And I know they say, necessity is the mother of invention. I probably could have roped in a friend's partner or husband to come and do it, but yeah, I was determined to dig deep. But yeah, I was very aware that I was putting those jobs off because of this deeper kind of blocks around, feeling a bit sad that I'm responsible for everything, feeling a bit like, oh, I'd really like, sort of this sort of fictional sort of superhero to swoop in and do some of these jobs for me. But at the end of the day, there's no one going to swoop in. I'm an adult, and and I had to figure out what was blocking me, and there we are. I now have a sort of working kitchen. It's quite a nice colour actually. It's like a dusty lilac, so I'm very I'm quite pleased with that. Anyway, back to therapy and counselling theory. So yeah, if you've got a pen and paper, maybe try and look a bit deeper, maybe have a little think about your younger years. Did you feel as though you might get support that you weren't getting when you were younger? Did you feel as though if you didn't, I mean, the sort of the non-PC term for it is learnt helplessness. I don't really like that term. I think it's quite pejorative. But if you see where I'm coming from with that, it's not about sort of being rude about people who have those tendencies, she says, pointing at herself. It's just about being able to get to the root of, why it might feel like a good survival strategy when we're younger to not be able to do the things that we could or should do. There are other elements that could come into play there as well. Things like, are you avoiding completing projects? Because when we complete a project, we can then be very much open to other people's judgment of, the final article. I know back when I was a glass artist, I very much found it hard to get that off the ground. I loved the process of creating the glass, but I had a big block in me around, if I created something and put it up for sale, that meant I was inviting potential criticism from other people. I was inviting potential judgment. And that links in with some of the other driver behaviours that I've talked about in some of the other videos. So that can link in with the driver to be perfect. And so fear of other people's judgment, or fear of them thinking that my creation wasn't perfect, was something that I really struggled with, and I really found that whole process, pushing through that discomfort, I found that really, really hard. Actually, with the glass, that was a really good learning curve for me, because when you create glass and put it into a kiln, even if it doesn't look great when it comes out, there's not a lot you can do to change it. It's kind of all baked in. And so whereas with other materials, textiles, acrylics, oils, watercolor to a certain extent, sketching, a lot of the crafts, you have chances to change it if it's not, in inverted commas, perfect. But with the glass, you pretty much have one, maybe two chances to get it looking good. And so I had to really push through that discomfort of knowing that if it didn't come out perfect, if I wanted to make a business out of it, I was still going to have to put it up for sale and open myself up to possible judgment and possible criticism. So yeah, that's something else you can think about with your piece of paper and your pencil. What judgment did you fear from other people? If you did, if you were to push through and complete your project, what might your worry be around what other people might say, or maybe not even say, what might other people think Is that something that is lurking in the back of your mind somewhere? And you know, and who might those people be? Is it coming from judgment of from yourself? Is it coming from judgment by other people? Do you still have judgments or from when you were younger, you know, when you were judged by maybe your teachers, maybe your family, maybe, you know, bullies at school? Do you still carry those in your subconscious or even in your conscious? Very often people will be running a tape in their head of very harsh critical comments, and often people, you know, berate themselves verbally and quite viciously. I often hear people sort of putting themselves down when they make a, you know, a little tiny mistake. You know, they might, I don't know, I'm just suddenly thinking of someone, you know, frying an egg and, you know, breaking the yolk, and you know, then quite viciously berating themselves and calling themselves names for making little tiny mistakes. You know, is that something that you do? Is that something that might then stop you from, you know, creating? Because if you're saying those things to yourself, do you think that other people might say that about you when you put your, you know, when you put your project out there, or you make it sort of public, or not necessarily public, but so that other people can see what you've done and can have an opinion? Is, you know, is it other people's opinions that are somehow holding you back? And as with my last video that I put up, you know, if there are things, if you're finding it hard to do these, to complete these projects, you know, are really tuning into your body and really tuning into your physical sensations that you notice when you think about, you know, sitting an exam or completing a project. When you think about what's stopping you, do you notice any physiological changes that are going on for you? Is it bringing up feelings of discomfort? Is it bringing up feelings of sort of panic or anxiety, or maybe the opposite, maybe total lethargy? Do you feel like sort of curling up in a ball on your bed and not, you know, and shutting the world away because it feels too much pressure to achieve your goal? So some of the strategies that I've done videos around, the butterfly hug. If I'm really clever and if I remember to, I will link it up there, or up there I've got a video about the butterfly hug, which can help to soothe you. And it can help to reset your nervous system if you're starting to either get real feelings of lethargy, or the opposite, if you're feeling sort of quite activated at the thought of completing projects or the thought of the judgment of others. You can try the butterfly hug. There's also the physiological sigh technique, which is just a really short breathwork technique, really fast, quite powerful, which are both really good, fast ways of resetting your nervous system, because it may be that this has been something that's been triggered possibly by some trauma, or just some really difficult situations that you have been through in the past, and that are still, your nervous system is still holding on to those feelings. So those two techniques might also help you to reset yourself, and to either find, you know, help you to balance your body so that you find the energy, or you're able to calm your energy enough to bring you into balance to be able to focus. So yeah, I hope that's been helpful. I'm trying to do longer videos because if I do short ones, I sort of gabble quite fast, and then I realise I've missed subtleties. So I'm probably going to try and do a few longer ones. Yeah, so let me know if you're enjoying a longer video, if you prefer the shorter ones. That would be helpful if you could give me any feedback you have. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe for me, and I hope you have a really, really good day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Bye.